Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Crushing Land, our very first episode of 2025. And so we're happy to be here with you today to discuss another important and relevant land investing topic that's on your minds and that we're getting a lot of questions about and things like that. Before we jump into that, though, a couple of different things that we want to talk about. We're kind of changing things a little bit here as far as how crushing land is going to go. We're going to be getting much more back into it than we were previously. We came out with this a number of years ago and kind of had the pedal to the metal with it, and then we kind of pulled back a little bit, and then we've readjusted things. And so the way that it's going to be moving forward, we want to talk about that a little bit with you really quickly here to begin with. So first off, this is no longer going to be broadcast, live streamed, whatever, into our Facebook group. It's going to be only on podcast channels and on YouTube. So just know that moving forward, you can watch it on our YouTube channel. There'll still be a link in the group where you can go and watch it there. But just for the sake of space and not cluttering it up with all these videos and all of that, and focusing on what the group is actually for, we're just going to keep the videos and that part of it out of there moving forward. So again, you'll be able to just go to YouTube. The easiest thing to do is just subscribe to us on YouTube and you'll get a notification as soon as the new Crushing Land video is uploaded. Or if you listen to it on podcasts or anything like that, then you'll get it the same way there, right? Obviously, you're subscribed to our podcast things, then you hear it and you notice it when it comes out. So that's the very easiest way to do it. Just subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on your favorite podcast station, and you'll be able to follow us that way. The other thing that we're going to get back into is obviously our guest part. You've already seen some posts about that if you're in the group. But starting next week, actually, we're going to be doing a special episode with a guest. We're going to have Anshul Sharma here. He's going to be talking to us, somebody that I've known basically since the day he started investing in land and have watched him on his journey. And now he's running a seven-figure, pushing eight figures in 2025 in his land investing business. And he's going to talk about that, but he's not going to talk about it from the perspective of all of these massive changes and everything, but no, basically following the same simple growth concepts and progressions all through the years and how he's been able to achieve that. And so even if your goal is not to be running a huge company like that, even if your goal is only to make a few $100,000 a year, the ideas, the applications, the principles, what he's going to talk about is going to be very beneficial for you. So make sure you join us for that. For the live guest episodes, there is going to be a change as well, in that those are going to be Zoom only. So we're going to be having registration links. They're in the group. We'll put the registration for next week below this one as well. You can register for that event. That's the way it's always going to be now. You can come to the event. You can ask questions at the end and all that, but it's going to be Zoom only for the guest episodes. All right. So if you want to be there live and you want to be part of it, all that, you have to come on Zoom. And again, no more in the Facebook group for any of these things. There'll be links, to be able to go other places, but we're not going to be pushing all of those videos out. So big changes for 2025, trying to make the podcast and this information better. We've already got a number of people lined up that are going to be joining us. And on the registration form, one of the things that we do ask you is if you have any ideas, if you have anything that you need help with, if you have any people that you know are high level and are really doing this that you think would be beneficial for us to bring on. So feel free to fill that out. Let us know. We've always asked from the very beginning, what topics would you like discussed? So give us details. Let us know these things, and we'd be more than happy to reach out to these different ones and bring them on and really help you to see the journey that they're on and what they've been able to do in their business so that you can do the same things. And the point of this is not so that you go out and emulate every single one of these people. Like some people out there are always like, oh, they have somebody on there like, I'm going to put that into my business immediately. And then they have somebody else, I'm going to put that into my business immediately. And they have somebody, I'm going to put that. They're not really doing that. It's not possible. But it's for you to sit there and say, oh man, if I just made this one little tweak, or that aligns so much with the way that I want to do things. So I want to follow this person, however it may be. So the more information that you have from different success stories, the more information that you have for different tools, for different resources, for related businesses to us. We've had attorneys and people like that on different things. That the more information that you have when it comes to that stuff, the more that you're able then to make informed decisions. And so that's what we're here to help you with. And then you can use that information. So, what are we going to talk about right now? Well, a lot of people are getting started in this, and one of the questions that they ask all the time is, "How do I do this if I have no money?" Right? I don't, not no money. I mean, we've said that before. You need to have some money in order to do this because you have to be able to market. You have to. I mean, if you literally have nothing in the bank and you're sitting there saying that I'm going to go out and I'm going to become a successful real estate investor, there are ways to do it through hustle. We're not going to talk about that. But what we're talking about here is limited budget, full-time job, don't really have the money to put into properties, that type of thing. How do we move forward? And so what we're going to be focusing on is double closing on properties, which means that you are not actually tying up your own funds in order to close on them. And this is something that we've taught right from the beginning. Okay. When I first started in land, I came from the housing world. And at that point, now we're talking back in like 2011, at that point, double closing in housing was very, very popular. People were doing it all the time. We were using it, but it wasn't super popular with land. There may have been a few here and there, but pretty much everybody taught you just buy these properties at a fraction of the cost, and then you sell them. You sell them with owner finance. So you were tying up money. And so we brought in at that point the double closing, saying, why are we going to do this only in houses when we can do it in land as well? Why are we going to leave deals on the table? It's still all real estate. So why not do this? And some people will sit there and they'll say, well, what's the point? Just work your way up slowly. And that can be a strategy. But the problem is, what happens if you have like next to nothing? What happens if you have $10,000? That's all you have that you can invest, right? Why sit there and focus on only a couple of properties or a single property or whatever it is that you can buy for $10,000 when you might be able to do a deal where you're putting a property under contract for $30,000 or $40,000 and selling it for $60,000, $70,000 or $80,000, right? So through double closing, you're able to do that in transactional funding. Transactional funding, we've talked about. We had Dave Dinkle on the show a long time ago. We broke that all down. We're not going to get back into that. We'll put the link in the comments below so you can go back and watch that one if you want, or listen to it. That way you're able to get that information and see how that works and what the moving parts are in there. But basically somebody else bringing their money. So you're simultaneously having two closings going at once. But what that allows you to do now is to go after multiple deals. Right? Instead of sitting there and saying like, well, I have this limited funds, I can only go after X, and then I get this, and then by the time I close that one, I'll go after this one, and then by the time that's done, I go after this one. You don't have to worry about that. You can go after everything. And the other thing, obviously, is advantage is you can do tons of them. You don't have to sit there and focus on, well, I can only do one deal. I can only do two deals, right? If you've got 10 going on, it's fine to do that. So how do we use them? Why do we use them? When do we use them? Well, there's a couple of different reasons for the why. So why, I just gave you one. You don't have the funds. That's a big, perfect one, right? You may not have the ability to close on things because you only have a few $1,000s in the bank. So you have very limited ability to go after other deals. So this is where double closing come into play. Other examples might be if there's something about the property that you're just not sure of. Maybe you're questioning the soil conditions. Maybe you're questioning a certain topography on it. Maybe you're concerned about flood zones. Maybe you're not really sure it's a great deal. Well, I got this property under contract for 10 grand and I see some comps at 20, but I'm not really sure if it's going to sell at 20. So I don't know if I want to own it. We have one that just reached out to us yesterday, which even in our current situation would still be a great double close because the HOA fees are like $1,800 a year and you don't want to absorb that, right? So these are examples of, why we use double closings and when we use double closings. The how to it obviously is a couple different ways. It goes to the closing company and you buy and sell at the exact same time. And so the question then is, well, how do you fund those deals? Well, you do it one of two ways. If you have the money, you fund it yourself. You wire the money, they wire you back. You're done. Or if you don't have the money at all, you can use transactional funding. They wire the money. They are then paid back plus a fee for their services, which is very low. And then you recoup or receive the rest of the profits at that point. So those are just some aspects of double closing that we use. Now, obviously, you have to make sure that all the parts are in place for that to work. So one thing is obviously the contract that we use is giving us the right to market the property. You have to be able to market the property when you don't own it. And certain wording based on certain areas is even more important. That's one of the things that we have in our contract that's included in our program that obviously will get us the right to have these properties marketed that we do not yet own. Timing is also important, right? And when it comes to that, you have to use that as a negotiation tool, and you also have to use it as something just to think about when you're doing things. So, for example, you got a piece of property, you come to terms with somebody, and they're saying, I'll sell this property for $20,000. And you think that the property is worth $45,000. Seems like a great deal. Problem is, they say, well, I want a 45-day close max. And you negotiate back and forth and back and forth. They're not coming off of 20,000. They're not coming off of 45 days. And you may sit there and say, well, that's a dead deal. But why? You could still double close. You just may not be able to get the 40 or 45 you want it for. You might only do a $30,000 deal. But again, pushing some paper, making $10,000, still double closing. Maybe you do an assignment in that case. There's a couple of different things that you look at, but you just got to have all of that stuff clear in mind. So it does give you some extra wiggle room. Now, obviously, if you're double closing and it's a substantial profit and you can have the extra time, you want to be able to do that because it might take you a little bit of time to get the buyer, do your due diligence, all of that. But at the same time, you just got to focus on, well, if the sellers are really, nope, I'm not coming off of this, I'm not coming off of this, I'm not doing this, you're still able to move forward with the process. So again, we go into this in deep details in our course that we can help you with, but we just wanted to give you some insight into the double closing and when it works and how it works and what the importance of it is and all of that, because we still use it a lot in our businesses. Even after doing this for a number of years, there's still many times where it makes sense. And obviously, the other thing that it allows you to do, which will always allow you to do, even when you get to super high levels, is you can always go after more deals because your capital is still always going to be limited to some number. Now, that number may be $5,000, it may be $50,000, it may be $500,000. But at whatever case it is, it's still going to be limited to that. And let's say you want to do a bigger deal and you want to go after a subdivision, you want to buy it, and the price of that subdivision is $500,000, and you have $500,000 in capital in a few years, and you put all of your money into that because by subdividing this and doing all of these things that you are now going to turn that $500,000 into a couple million. That's a great deal. But what happens to all the other deals that come along now? You have all these other deals in the pipeline, and people are responding, and you have no capital to go out and buy them. Now, I'm using extreme examples here, but these are legitimate things that can come up. So you're always going to have your capital working in other areas, and you're always going to be limited to what that number actually is, where double closing allows you to not have those limitations. The sky's the limit at that point. You can do whatever you want with it. So again, a little bit on double closings, why we use them, and why not having funds to buy property shouldn't stop you from getting involved in real estate investing. So many people allow it to stop them, and it shouldn't. You don't want to stop because of that. Now, again, you do need some money to market. You need some money for outreach, things like that. So you got to make sure that you have at least a few $1,000s that you can play with in order to get going, but don't worry about the money for the deals. So hopefully that was helpful for everybody there. Reach out if you have questions, comment below our information if you want to schedule a call, and all that is there. And again, make sure that you tune in regularly. We have so much stuff in store for 2025 on Crushing Land. So thanks for joining us this week. We'll catch you next week for our live version of Crushing Land with Anshul, and we'll have you on. Well, the Zoom registration will be below so that you can ask questions to him as we really get into these details of how we can do simple growth and yet still turn it into a 6, 7, 8-figure land investing machine. So thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week on Crushing Land.